You know what no one really mentions about an economic collapse? It's not the exact instant your bank balance drops to zero. It's that random Tuesday morning when you're standing outside a pharmacy that's been shuttered for 2 weeks, clutching a prescription your child urgently needs, and realizing that the $50,000 you worked so hard to save can't even buy one bottle of antibiotics. I've been researching societal breakdown since 2008. Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Bosnia. And here's what genuinely surprised me. Back in 2008, the cost of ammunition skyrocketed to 10 or 20 times its normal price. In Venezuela, people were bartering gold jewelry just to get toilet paper. In Bosnia, a single lighter was valuable enough to trade for an entire month's worth of food. Sure, gold retains its place as a long-term store of value, but during those brutal first months of collapse, it's useless for survival. You can't eat it, drink it, or heal a wound with it. There are about a dozen everyday items that end up being worth far more than gold. Today, I'm breaking down 12 simple supplies you can pick up right now for just a few dollars each. Items that could be worth hundreds, even thousands, when the systems we depend on stop working. No gold, no crypto, just practical tools that solve life or death problems. These are the things savvy preppers quietly collect while they're still affordable. Let's start. Number 1, water purification tablets and filters. Listen closely. This is the single most essential item on the list. When society begins to unravel, clean water is always the first thing to disappear. And I'm not talking weeks after collapse, I mean hours. Water treatment facilities rely on power, chemicals, and constant human oversight. The second those systems fail, the countdown begins. Most people are just 3 days away from severe dehydration. Here's the part most never think about. 1 out of 3 people have no idea where their water actually comes from or what happens if it stops running from the tap. We simply twist the faucet and expect clean water because that's how it's always been. But in every single collapse throughout history, water instantly becomes the first and most urgent crisis. Diseases like cholera, dysentery, and typhoid, illnesses we think belong to the past, come roaring back as soon as sanitation collapses. You might be thinking, I'll just store bottled water. And sure, you should have some, but water is heavy and takes up massive space. You physically can't store enough to survive a long-term crisis. What you really need is the ability to make unsafe water drinkable. That's where purification becomes literally priceless. Take the Life Straw, for example. You can buy one for about $20, and it can filter around 1,000 liters of water. That's roughly a year's supply for one person drinking 3 liters per day. Think about that. A $20 purchase could give you a year of safe hydration. When I was in Haiti doing disaster relief, I saw firsthand how people with water filters suddenly became the most vital members of their communities. They didn't trade water for cash. Money meant nothing. They traded it for food, for shelter, for safety, for survival itself. So stock up smart. Get purification tablets, portable filters, and liquid drops. Use multiple methods because if one runs out or fails, you'll still have alternatives. This is something you never want to be without. Number 2, antibiotics and medical supplies. Here's an uncomfortable truth. In a true societal collapse, the biggest killer isn't violence or starvation, it's infection. A tiny cut can become deadly when you don't have antibiotics. And once the healthcare system fails, that danger arrives almost immediately. I remember after Hurricane Katrina, one of the first things people did was raid pharmacies. Not just for drugs to sell, though that happened too, but because diabetics needed insulin, heart patients needed their prescriptions, and everyone knew those supplies would soon vanish. The pharmacies that weren't looted ran out of stock in days simply because delivery trucks couldn't get through. Here's what you should have ready. First aid essentials: bandages, gauze, tape, antiseptic wipes, antibacterial ointments. These items are cheap right now. You can build a solid medical kit for under $100. But when the shelves are bare and someone in your family needs it, that $5 tube of antibiotic cream could mean the difference between life and death. Think of the basics hospitals rely on daily: gloves, masks, rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, iodine. These items become priceless because they prevent infections that can kill when no doctor is available. During the Soviet Union's collapse, people who had simple medical supplies became the unofficial medics of their neighborhoods, trading their skills and resources for everything they needed to survive. And no, I'm not saying you should turn your living room into an operating room, but you should absolutely know the fundamentals: basic wound care, basic hygiene, basic infection prevention. These skills, when paired with the proper tools, can mean the difference between a small scrape and a fatal wound. Get your supplies now while it's simple and inexpensive. Number 3, ammunition in common calibers. This topic tends to divide people, but let's face the reality. Roughly 1 in 3 Americans owns a firearm. That's over 100 million gun owners. Yet here's the real question. How many of them actually have a meaningful stockpile of ammunition? Let's rewind to 2008, when the economy tanked, panic spread, and ammo vanished from store shelves virtually overnight. The humble .22 LR rounds, among the most common and useful, became impossible to find for months. When you could track them down, sellers were charging 10 to 20 times their normal price. I personally saw people pay $50 for a box that used to cost $5. There's a reason ammo becomes so valuable in a collapse. It serves 3 critical functions. First, self-defense. When order breaks down, and it always does to some degree, your ability to protect yourself and your family becomes non-negotiable. Second, hunting. If the crisis drags on long enough, your stored food will eventually run out, and the ability to harvest game can mean survival. Third, barter. Ammunition is one of the most universally desired and recognized trade goods in any survival situation. But not all ammunition is created equal. You need to focus on the common calibers that everyone uses and understands. The 9mm is the most widely used pistol round. The .22 LR is lightweight, versatile, and perfect for small game. The 12-gauge shotgun shell is irreplaceable for hunting and defense. And for rifles, the .223 or 5.56 NATO rounds are standard. These calibers are universally recognized, easy to trade, and they can remain usable for decades if stored properly. I personally keep my ammunition stored across several locations, each sealed with desiccant packs to fight moisture damage. Here's something few people realize. Even if you don't own a gun, ammunition still holds incredible value. It's compact, standardized, and universally useful. In a barter economy, it becomes a form of currency. Number 4, butane lighters in bulk. Not matches, not fancy magnesium fire starters, not overpriced tactical survival gear. I'm talking about simple, disposable plastic Bic lighters, the kind you can buy by the dozen for a few dollars. And here's why they become absolute treasure in a collapse. A survivor from the Bosnian War once shared that during the siege, a working lighter was considered more valuable than a generator. Sounds unbelievable until you think it through. A generator is noisy, attracts attention, gets stolen easily, and burns fuel that no one can find. But a lighter is quiet, portable, discreet, and provides instant fire in nearly any condition. Fire is essential for human survival. Cooking food, boiling water, staying warm, sterilizing tools, signaling for rescue. But what most people overlook is the psychological comfort of having dependable fire at your fingertips. I remember doing winter survival training in Montana back in 2018. February, freezing temperatures, everything soaked. A guy next to me had an $80 magnesium fire starter, top-of-the-line gear. He spent nearly an hour trying to spark a flame. Cold fingers, howling wind, frustration rising. I pulled out a $1 Bic lighter and had a steady flame in 2 seconds flat. That moment drove the lesson home. In a real emergency, when you're exhausted, scared, and freezing, you don't want complicated tools. You want something that works every single time. That's the beauty of lighters. They're sealed, self-contained, and reliable.
Unlike matches that get ruined by humidity or ferro rods that demand skill and dry tinder, a lighter functions in almost any situation. The fuel stays protected, the design is simple, and a single unit can last for thousands of ignitions. I've tested lighters that sat in storage for over a decade. They still lit perfectly. In a barter-based economy, lighters are perfect trade items. They're small, universally understood, and immediately useful. In the Yugoslav collapse, a single working lighter could be traded for enough food to feed a family for a week.
Not because they were initially rare, but because people soon realized without fire, survival gets a lot harder. Here's my approach. I buy lighters in bulk, usually 50 packs when they go on sale. I skip the decorative ones and stick to plain, solid color Bics. Then I vacuum seal them in bundles of 5 with a small silica gel pack to prevent moisture issues. I stash them everywhere in my truck, my bug-out bag, jacket pockets, and hidden locations. The cost is minimal, but when the time comes, their value will be immeasurable. Number 5, heirloom seeds. Now, this next one might not sound as urgent as having clean water or medical gear, but stay with me because this is where short-term survival evolves into long-term sustainability. Once the chaos of a collapse begins to calm down, once people have burned through their canned food and emergency rations, a realization hits hard. We have to grow food. Self-sufficiency stops being a buzzword and becomes the only way forward. That's the moment when seeds suddenly transform into one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Forget cryptocurrency, forget gold, forget stocks. Seeds could literally become the currency of a post-collapse society. And here's why. You can't print them. You can't artificially inflate their supply, and they represent the power to create endless value. One single tomato seed can produce a plant with dozens of fruits, each packed with more seeds. That's exponential growth, real, tangible, renewable wealth. But not just any seeds will do. You need non-GMO, heirloom, and open-pollinated varieties. Those modern hybrid seeds you find in commercial stores are designed for one-time use. They often won't reproduce effectively. You can't save seeds from them and expect reliable crops next season. That's intentional. It keeps you dependent on seed companies. Heirloom seeds, on the other hand, have been preserved and passed down for generations precisely because they breed true. You can plant them, harvest, save their seeds, and repeat the cycle indefinitely. During the Great Depression, countless families survived because they grew their own food. When cash was worthless and store shelves were empty, a backyard garden often determined who made it through and who didn't. And that wasn't even total collapse. Imagine a scenario where supermarkets stay closed for months or even years. Here's the trade potential. A packet of quality heirloom seeds costs maybe $3 to $5 today. But for someone starving, someone realizing too late that they need to grow food to stay alive, that small packet becomes priceless. They'd trade tools, medicine, or anything of value just to get a chance to plant and harvest. And unlike other prep items, sharing seeds doesn't cost you much because every harvest produces far more seeds than you'll ever use. That means you can trade and still have plenty left for your own planting. Stock up on variety: tomatoes, beans, squash, peppers, herbs, and leafy greens. Focus on crops that thrive in your specific climate. And here's a crucial piece of advice. Keep them in their original packaging. In a barter situation, people want proof that your seeds are genuine and viable. The original packet with dates and details is your certificate of authenticity. Number 6, coffee and caffeine products. This one tends to get laughs until people think it through. How many folks do you know who cannot function in the morning without their coffee? How many rely on energy drinks just to make it through the day? We're not just talking about preference here. We're talking about physical dependence. The truth is, caffeine is the most consumed psychoactive substance on the planet. People are genuinely addicted to it. And when society collapses, that addiction doesn't vanish. It intensifies. In high-stress, exhausting survival conditions where you're working harder, sleeping less, and constantly on edge, caffeine becomes a literal survival enhancer. It sharpens focus, boosts energy, and can keep you from burning out at the worst moment. But there's another layer to it, the psychological comfort. When the world feels chaotic and every day is a struggle, the simple act of sipping a cup of coffee can feel like a moment of sanity. Never underestimate how much that small sense of normalcy can support mental resilience during crisis. And coffee and tea also have tremendous barter value. They're light, easy to store, universally recognized, and widely desired. Right now, a pound of coffee costs maybe $10, but in a collapse, someone suffering caffeine withdrawal or craving that familiar taste would trade highly valuable items to just get it.
During World War II, soldiers used coffee as currency. It was that sought after. Here's what you should store. Instant coffee, compact, long shelf life, and easy to prepare. Tea bags, lightweight, space-efficient, and universally enjoyed. Energy drink powder mixes, portable and simple to trade. Caffeine pills, the most space-efficient and concentrated form. Diversify your caffeine stash because everyone has different preferences, which means more trade opportunities. And here's something most people don't realize. Caffeine products are valuable to people who don't normally use them. When you're working 12-hour days, hauling water, chopping wood, reinforcing your shelter, that little burst of energy becomes incredibly appealing. Caffeine quickly turns into one of the most practical and desirable trade goods in any survival economy. Number 7, alcohol in small bottles. And no, this isn't just about giving people a way to get drunk. But let's be honest, that demand will exist too. Alcohol serves several critical purposes during a collapse that make it one of the most versatile and valuable commodities you can store. First and foremost, medical use. Before modern medicine brought us antibiotics and reliable painkillers, alcohol was humanity's all-purpose remedy, used for both disinfecting wounds and dulling pain. And the truth is, it still works for both today. Rubbing alcohol is excellent for cleaning injuries, but even drinking alcohol like vodka or whiskey can serve as a backup disinfectant or emergency pain reliever when nothing else is available. I've heard countless stories from field medics about people enduring unbearable pain, like a severe toothache, who would trade nearly anything for a shot of whiskey just to take the edge off when no dentist or medication could be found. Second, psychological relief. Let's be honest, some people roll their eyes when this comes up, but we have to be realistic. In a world full of fear, exhaustion, and daily uncertainty, alcohol becomes more than a luxury. It's a temporary escape. During the Great Depression, during Prohibition, even when alcohol was illegal or scarce, people still found ways to get it, because that small break from an overwhelming reality was worth the effort and risk. Third, trade value. Alcohol is one of those vice goods that vanishes almost instantly in any crisis. People who drink, those with addictions, or anyone desperate for stress relief will pay top dollar or trade valuable supplies to get it. And since alcohol is consumable, once someone drinks it, it's gone. That means there's no long-term competition or market saturation. Here's how to stockpile alcohol smartly. Focused on small bottles, airplane sizes or pint bottles. These make perfect trade units. If all you have are large bottles, you'll be forced into large trades, which isn't efficient. Smaller containers let you make multiple deals, stretch your supply, and trade flexibly. Stick with vodka and whiskey. They last indefinitely, have multiple uses, and don't spoil. Avoid beer and wine. They're bulky, perishable, and take up too much space for the value they offer. Personally, I keep a full case of mini vodka bottles set aside specifically for barter. The entire case cost me under $50 and barely takes up space. But in a true collapse, it could be worth hundreds or even thousands in trade value. And look, I'd get it. This can all feel overwhelming, especially if you're new to preparedness. I've been there. When I first started prepping back in 2012, I was broke and totally lost on where to begin. That's why I created a free guide that explains how to turn just $50 into a 90-day emergency food supply, the exact system I used myself when I started. Inside, you'll find a detailed shopping list with current prices, specific brands, and 37 crucial items that most beginners overlook but absolutely need in a crisis. It even includes a section on meals you can make without any cooking fuel, something you'll be grateful for if power or gas become unavailable. The guide's completely free. You just need to tell me where to send it. The link's right in the description or the pinned comment. Grab it while you're thinking about it. This kind of practical, step-by-step help is what gets you started efficiently without breaking the bank or feeling buried by options. Remember, preparation doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. Small, consistent steps now save you from panic later. Number 8. Hygiene products. Soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, feminine hygiene supplies, razors, shampoo, dental floss. All these sound so ordinary that most people ignore them completely.
But here's the reality. Go 2 weeks without soap in a survival scenario, and you'll understand their true value fast. First, the obvious. You'll feel absolutely miserable, sticky, grimy, uncomfortable in your own skin. But it's not just about feeling clean. In a collapse, poor hygiene is one of the quickest ways for disease to explode through a community. Without regular washing, infections spread at terrifying speed. Skin infections, respiratory illnesses, stomach bugs. And without medical care, those minor issues can become deadly. During the siege of Sarajevo, one of the most requested trade items wasn't guns or food, it was soap. People were desperate for cleanliness, for dignity, and to prevent the filth-related illnesses killing their neighbors. Those who had hygiene supplies became some of the most valuable traders around. Here's why hygiene products hold incredible barter power. They're universal. Everyone, young, old, male, female, needs them. They're consumable. Once used up, people need more, which keeps demand constant. They represent comfort and normalcy. In a world falling apart, the simple act of brushing your teeth, washing your hair, or shaving can make you feel human again. Never underestimate the psychological boost of feeling clean when everything else is chaos. The person who can offer others that small slice of normal life becomes vital in their community. Stock up on the basics: soap bars, toothpaste, toothbrushes, menstrual products, razors, shampoo, and dental floss. They're cheap, lightweight, and store easily. In a long-term crisis, these simple items can mean health, dignity, and powerful trade leverage. Bar soap lasts far longer than liquid soap and takes up far less space. It's compact, efficient, and easier to store in bulk. Travel-size hygiene products are perfect for trading because they're pre-measured, easy to distribute, and appeal to people who don't need a full-size product. Feminine hygiene supplies are absolutely critical and far too often ignored by male preppers. Yet, they hold tremendous trade value and can mean life-changing comfort and dignity in hard times. Toothbrushes and toothpaste might seem minor, but in a world without dentists, dental infections can turn deadly fast. I personally keep a storage bin dedicated entirely to hygiene goods: travel-size soaps, mini shampoos, toothpaste tubes, disposable razors, and sanitary pads. The entire bin cost me maybe $150 to fill, but in a collapse, it represents months of barter power and goodwill. Number 9. Duct tape and repair supplies. Most people fixate on storing food and water, but here's what actually happens in a long-term crisis. Everything starts to break. Your tent tears, your backpack strap snaps, your jacket rips, your boots split, your tools crack, and there's no replacement store, no next-day delivery, no hardware aisle to save you. One of the most underestimated parts of long-term survival is gear degradation. When you're using your tools and clothing every single day under harsh conditions, things fail far quicker than you'd expect. Without the ability to repair them, your survival capability literally unravels piece by piece. Duct tape is the obvious must-have, and yes, it's incredibly useful, but don't stop there. Stock WD-40 for lubrication and rust prevention. Keep superglue for quick emergency fixes. Add zip ties, which are incredibly versatile. Store paracord, baling wire, and JB Weld for strong, permanent repairs. All these supplies are dirt cheap now, but in a collapse, missing just one could cost you dearly. Let me give you a real-world example. During the Texas freeze in 2021, my neighbor was trying to secure a tarp over a shattered window while freezing winds cut through the neighborhood.
He struggled with rope for nearly an hour, fingers numb, unable to tie it tight enough. I handed him a pack of heavy-duty zip ties. Within 5 minutes, the tarp was locked down and stayed that way for the entire storm. He tried to hand me $50 for that single pack on the spot. That's when I realized just how valuable simple repair tools become when everything else fails. The deeper truth about repair supplies is this: they extend the life of everything you own. That $200 sleeping bag, a patch, and some adhesive can make it last years longer. Those irreplaceable work boots, a bit of glue and stitching keeps them going indefinitely. Every repair saves you from having to replace something that may never be replaceable again.
The person who not only has repair materials, but also knows how to use them becomes one of the most important members of their community. You're not just trading items, you're trading capability. Personally, I keep multiple types of tape, glues, fasteners, cords, and lubricants. My total investment is maybe $100, but what it gives me, the power to fix almost anything, is worth hundreds of times more in a true collapse scenario. Number 10. Batteries in all sizes. This might sound obvious once you hear it, but most people haven't actually thought it through. In a grid-down event, every battery-powered device you own becomes useless the instant those batteries die. Your flashlight, your emergency radio, your walkie-talkies, your medical devices, all depend on battery power. And here's what happens every single time there's a crisis. Batteries are among the first things to disappear. During hurricanes, blackouts, and major storms, store shelves get stripped bare in hours. I've seen it repeatedly. The moment a storm warning hits, people rush out and the battery aisle is empty before sunset. The most critical sizes are AA, AAA, and 9V. They power flashlights, radios, headlamps, and countless other essentials. But don't ignore the smaller specialty types like CR123s, hearing aid batteries, or watch batteries. These become incredibly valuable for specific needs, and since most people overlook them, they'll be in even higher demand for trade. Here's the best strategy. Stock both disposable and rechargeable batteries. Use disposables for long-term storage and trading, and rechargeables for personal use with a solar charger. That setup gives you both immediate power and renewable energy security. Think about what you actually rely on in a collapse. You need light at night. Flashlights need batteries. You need updates and communication. Radios need batteries. You need coordination with others. Walkie-talkies need batteries. You need life-critical tools like glucose monitors or blood pressure cuffs. Those need batteries too. Without power, people are literally left in the dark, unable to see, to communicate, or to manage their health. That's when desperation sets in, and desperate people will trade food, fuel, or tools for the batteries that keep them alive and connected. In a world without electricity, batteries don't just power devices, they power survival itself. I've built a full battery storage system with hundreds of units, each sorted by size and clearly labeled with purchase dates. Every few years, I rotate through the older ones for personal use and restock with fresh batteries to keep everything current. The total cost might hover around $200, but what it gives me, the power to fix almost anything, is worth hundreds of times more in a true collapse scenario. Number 11. Propane and small fuel containers. When the power grid collapses, natural gas lines fail, and heating systems grind to a halt, three things become absolutely essential: heat, light, and a way to cook food. Propane delivers all three in one tidy, dependable package. Compact camping propane cylinders are ideal for post-collapse living. They're standardized, portable, long-lasting, and universally recognized for their usefulness. A single 1-pound tank can power a camping stove for several meals or fuel a propane lantern for days. I've personally witnessed propane's value skyrocket during long power outages. People with electric stoves suddenly couldn't prepare meals. Homes relying on central heating systems froze quickly. Even those with generators ran out of fuel. In those moments, propane became the magic solution everyone was searching for. What makes the smaller tanks so valuable is their portability and trade flexibility. You can trade in neat, practical units, a single tank for a night of heat or a few cooked meals. Unlike large, heavy household tanks that are difficult to move or divide, these smaller cylinders are a perfect barter standard, easy to carry, easy to value, and essential for daily survival. Stock up on the small green 1-pound camping tanks. They typically cost about $5 to $7 each right now, but in an emergency where people are cold and starving, they could be worth 10 times that. It's also smart to pick up refiller adapters that allow you to replenish the small tanks from larger ones. This simple tool can stretch your fuel supply enormously. Store your propane safely in a cool, dry location, away from living areas, and clearly labeled with dates. And don't forget one critical detail that most preppers overlook. Fuel is only useful if you have the gear that runs on it. Stock propane-powered camping stoves, heaters, and lanterns.
When the world goes dark, having both the fuel and the tools to use it instantly turns you into one of the most resourceful people around. Number 12, salt. This one catches most people off guard because it seems so basic, so ordinary, but it's actually one of the most valuable survival items in human history. Entire economies once revolved around salt. The reason? It's absolutely vital for both human health and food preservation. Your body literally cannot function without salt. You lose it through sweat, especially in high-stress, physically demanding survival situations. Without replenishing it, you risk serious health issues and even death. When processed foods disappear and you're living on simple staples like rice and beans, salt deficiency can become a genuine danger. But the value of salt goes far beyond nutrition. It's the oldest and most effective method of food preservation known to humankind. Before refrigeration, canning, or freezers, people used salt to keep meat, fish, and vegetables edible for months. In a collapse, that ability to prevent spoilage could be the deciding factor between surviving a harsh winter or starving through it. Salt also has medical uses. It's an ingredient in homemade saline for cleaning wounds. It can soothe infections when dissolved in warm water, and it's been used for centuries to treat minor skin issues. It's simple, natural, and proven to work. And here's the kicker. Salt never goes bad. Properly stored, it's good forever. It doesn't rot, spoil, or lose potency. That makes it one of the most permanent and reliable prep items you can own. Better yet, it's dirt cheap. Right now, you can buy a 25-pound bag for under $10. Throughout history, salt was so precious that it literally served as money. Roman soldiers were partially paid in salt. That's where the word salary comes from. In a collapsed world where preserving food and maintaining health become vital again, salt will regain that same level of importance. The trade potential is enormous. Because most people underestimate it, few will think to stock extra, but once they run out, once their meals are bland, once they realize they can't preserve food, once salt deficiency sets in, they'll understand its true worth. That's when your stockpile becomes gold. I personally keep multiple 25-pound bags sealed in airtight containers to keep moisture out. My total investment is under $50 and it takes minimal space, yet that stash could last for decades, ensuring both sustenance and trading power when it matters most. Stay practical, stay prepared. The best time to get ready was yesterday, but the second best time is right now. While others panic and scramble, you'll already have the essentials. That's not just survival, it's thriving when everyone else is barely holding on. If this helped you, hit subscribe, drop a comment about which item surprised you the most, and share it with someone who needs to start preparing today.